I will start us off. I'm Bob Wyman. I'm the Associate Head of School at the St. Stephen's St. Agnes School in Alexandria, Virginia. We're right outside Washington, D.C. This is my 30th year in independent school education. And I was a lower school head, a middle school head, acting admissions director, associate head of school. So I've had lots of different roles within the school community. And I have 3 children, 2 of whom have graduated, a class of 20 and 21, and 1 who is graduating in a couple of years.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening. My name is Kiki Davis. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Director of Institutional Equity and Diversity at St. Stephen's and St. Agnes. This is my 12th year at the school, my 19th year as a diversity practitioner. I'm also an 11th grade advisor in our upper school and the proud parent of a 2019 Saints alum.
So the question mark is, why are we doing this webinar, and why are we happy that you all joined us this evening? So Kiki will first answer that question.
First and foremost, we love our school community. We love St. Stephen's and St. Agnes, and we're eager to share a bit of it with you and educators from all over the country.
And then secondly, we really are excited to introduce educators to independent schools. Only about 10% of students in the country attend independent schools. So chances are that they are new to you from that perspective, thinking back to when you were a student. I also remember when I was in graduate school getting a master's in administration, and probably about 5% of my class in grad school went to independent schools. The professors never mentioned independent schools. And so most folks graduating, I assume from graduate programs, don't really consider independent schools as an option. And so we want to let you know about them just so that you can think about them as a possibility for your future career.
Absolutely. We also want to provide you with specific information about how to find a job in independent schools. If you Google finding a job in independent schools, there's not one place to find all the information that we'll share with you here tonight. So we tried that and we know that to be true. So we hope that you will get what you need this evening.
We'll cover a lot of information, and we will email you this evening or tomorrow as a follow-up a PDF of this deck, along with links to all the associations and organizations that we mentioned. And as I said, if you put things in the chat, that'll come to us. If there are questions that arise, we'll try to answer them during the presentation, and we'll at the very least answer them at the end of the presentation.
So before we start talking about logistics, we want to talk about finding the right school community. So there are many different types of independent schools all around the country. Different sizes, student populations can range from 50 students to 1,400 students. Locations can be urban, rural, or like St. Stephen's and St. Agnes, suburban. They may have different religious affiliations or none at all. The philosophies may vary as well. For example, they may be tied to a specific approach like constructivist teaching. They can be co-ed or single gender. They could be day or boarding. And if you're willing to live on campus in a dorm, that is a wonderful possibility. And while it can be very rewarding, I just want to forewarn you that you may have kids knock on your door in the middle of the night. To illustrate the kind of diversity that we're talking about among schools, within 10 minutes of where we are in Alexandria, we have a boarding high school, a K-8 school on a small farm, and several small Christian schools. So think about which of those factors might be important to you when you're looking for a school community. Also, think about what you most value. Is it community service, environmental education, diversity inclusion, academic rigor, health and wellness? Then look at the mission statement to help determine the school's values. Most independent schools have a mission statement, have their mission statement on their website. This tells you who a school is and what's important to them. So it's important to take a look at that. Also, try to discern what the opportunities for growth might be. Whether you are new or seasoned educator, how do you want to grow? And what can the school do to help you in that growth? Will they support you through graduate school or provide mentoring programs or professional development? What kind of support do they give to new teachers? This is really important to ask about when you're looking for a new school community. And also think about the community as a whole. And this sometimes is tough to figure out. You really need to visit and get a feel for a school's culture. Something else that can help you do that is to talk to the parents of the kids who go to the school or talk to folks who work there. Sometimes you can do an informational interview off season. If there isn't a position available in your area of expertise, you can go and visit the campus and just get a feel of what it's like to be actually in the institution and on the grounds. Ultimately, finding a place that feels like home on a gut level is really important, as you will most likely spend a lot of your time there.
So next we're going to talk about the types of positions in independent schools. This is really advertised for educators, so most of you are probably teachers, but there are many different roles in independent schools. So whether you're interested or you have friends or colleagues or family members who might be interested, we kind of wanted to broaden the conversation. So obviously starting with academic, you have lower school homeroom teachers. A school like ours that goes from 3-year-olds all the way through 12th grade has a variety of academic positions in middle school or upper school, math, science, English, history, government, etc. In their teaching specials too, you can teach PE, music, art, religion, a school like ours, technology, and then coaching. We have folks who are full-time PE and coaches, and then we have folks who come in just in the afternoon to coach as well. In terms of administration, we've got academic administrators, admissions, advancement, which is like fundraising and alumni relations, college counseling, a business office, communications and marketing. So again, people who might be in the business world right now might really find a home in an independent school, moving into an independent school. So learning resource goes by lots of different names, or academic support. This is really for you if you have a special education degree or a specialization in learning differences. And there are lots of different degrees that might fit that category. Now, there are independent schools that are specifically geared towards students with different learning challenges. And so there are also independent schools like ours, like most, that places a high value on supporting students with a wide range of abilities. So for schools like ours, we will have at each division staff of people who have been trained who can support. They'll pull out, they'll push in, they'll do a lot of professional development with our teachers. Counseling, and we wanted to mention this because it's different in an independent school than it might be in a public school. In an independent school, counselors counsel. They don't manage discipline. They don't have anything to do with the college application process, but they're really focused on the mental health and well-being of students, and this might be a surprise for someone, of faculty as well. So our counselors are available to us as teachers and as administrators, which is wonderful. Then you have support staff and administrative assistants and others throughout all those different offices that I mentioned. We have auxiliary programs. So for people with a business and an entrepreneurial background, we have summer programs, after school clubs, before care, after care as well. We have staff that takes care of people's physical well-being. So we have nurses and athletic trainers. The trainers mostly deal with the upper school, but at middle school and somewhat, and school nurse at the other divisions too. And then there are all of those people that make everything run smoothly. So IT, building and grounds, transportation, custodial, dining, things like that. And I include this picture from a Halloween party of musical chairs because as my career here attests, you can get into an independent school and then move from one division to another. You could move from teaching to administration and back again. We have people who have started off as administrative assistants in, let's say, the development office while they're getting their master's and then ending up in the classroom. So there's lots of moving around that can happen within independent schools.
So we want to now talk a little bit about actually teaching in independent schools. And one thing to keep in mind is that the curriculum is largely developed by the faculty with support of a curriculum coordinator and the administration. So it's not developed in a central office and passed down. That allows for flexibility, for creativity, and an opportunity to individualize your teaching. It also allows for a collaborative process with team members that teach in the same area, the same grade you do. Independent schools also have other responsibilities that extend beyond the classroom. So in addition to your role as a classroom teacher, you may also be an advisor like I am in the upper school. And you may also have duties like carpool or yay, chaperoning prom and dances and things like that, field trips, trips abroad. And they, you know, everyone is really encouraged to get involved in other ways beyond your primary role. In regards to assessments, teachers develop their own assessment tools, from traditional tests and quizzes to project-based learning, and other forms of authentic assessment. We don't follow statewide standardized tests, which is great because we don't have to be restricted by them or carve out time to prepare to teach for them. So there's no teaching to the test. There is also in our school and schools around the country, a focus now on grading for equity. In talking about the daily schedule, many independent schools are moving away from the traditional 45-minute class schedule and moving towards schedules with longer classes and fewer classes each day. This gives the student more downtime and more passing time and creates a healthier pace in general for the student during the course of their day. Another thing about teaching at independent schools is this opportunity for professional development. It's a great benefit and includes great speakers and workshops and really helps the faculty keep abreast of educational trends that are happening. Talking more about professional development, independent schools work hard to stay up to date, and they're very nimble at doing so. So a lot of our professional development at St. Stephen's St. Agnes School over the past few years has been focused on our DEIB, or diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and the mind-brain education, or neurodiversity. As it relates to DEIB, we have read books by and have heard from authors like Julie Lythcott-Hames, Debbie Irving, and Dr. Howard Stevenson. And we received training earlier in the school year from the Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities on how to navigate and facilitate challenging but necessary conversations, which was very timely with all the conversations that are happening around so many challenging topics. Ian Keller and Glenn Whitman, authors of NeuroTeach, worked with our faculty several times over a 2-year period to help us apply the latest in brain research for us to understand how best to teach in the classroom, taking these concepts into our brain, right, into what we do. We also have opportunities for external conferences and workshops. We have a wonderful summer grant program to study your craft or to grow personally as well as professionally. And it's something that we offer to our faculty each year.
So we're not saying all independent schools do all these amazing things. Obviously, we want to talk a little bit about St. Stephen's, St. Agnes, but these are probably themes that you would find from many independent schools. So requirements, we wanted to make sure that you knew, because there's definitely a misunderstanding about what you may or may not need. So some of you may be surprised that you do not need to be certified to teach in most private schools. Really, certification is not a requirement for most private schools. So I know that there are people who are, maybe in college and they decided to focus on one area and then they decide they want to teach and they're thinking, oh gosh, I'm not certified, so I can't teach. Well, independent schools are an option for those folks. Teachers in the middle school and the upper school, so that's the middle school and the high school, often major in their area of expertise. So for example, we will hire an English major to teach English, or it might be like a comparative literature major or a history major to teach history without the educational background. Now it's a little different in our lower school and in most lower schools. In most lower schools, you do need an elementary education degree or the equivalent to teach at the elementary school level. Many of our teachers have masters or PhDs. If someone is new to teaching, so if you're in school now or you're new in your career, in addition to the educational background, we're looking for kid experience, because teaching is all about the kids and all about the students. So we're looking for things like tutoring, coaching, people who teach at their Sunday school, being a camp counselor, a day camp or an overnight camp. Sometimes schools do hire non-educators who are experts in their fields if they have the right qualities and experience. So maybe we'll hire someone who's a scientist to teach science, or a professional writer to teach English. And we'll talk about more about that in a little bit. In the upper school, you really need advanced mastery of your subject in particular. Not that you don't at any other, you do, of course, at elementary and middle, but in terms of like the content at an upper school level, especially if you're teaching advanced placement and IB, things like that, you obviously need to know your material inside and out. And then Kiki had mentioned this before, is that independent schools hope that you'll share something about yourself in the classroom, or outside the classroom, beyond what you're teaching. So think about, what is it that you are passionate about? Think about maybe what you did in college or what you did in high school, but also, what do you enjoy now? Do you have a hobby? Do you have a sport that you're interested in? Because schools will have all kinds of like clubs and programs. So maybe outdoor education, yearbook, chess, photography. We happen to have, over the last several years, we happen to have a lot of upper school teachers who are musicians. And so there's a faculty band, or they'll play at our chapel or at gatherings. So I'm a magician. So my office is on the elementary school campus. So I go up to kids and I like grab lights out of their ears and things like that. And it's just really fun for me to be able to do magic. But then also I teach professional magic to the fifth graders, who then perform at children's hospitals and low-income preschools and retirement homes and stuff like that. So I feel so lucky that I have a job, and I did that when I was a full-time English teacher as well. I had a magic club that I can do the English part, but then also do magic.
And I should say, we all benefit from Bob's magic. He always has a magic trick on hand. And so it's wonderful to walk by Bob and say, like, I need a magic trick. So that's always nice to have. So there are also certain other qualities that are a must when you think about working in independent schools. Being a team player, collaboration is very important. The ability to go above and beyond what is asked, to think innovatively about what you're doing, to be a strong role model for students and in our peers, to be professional, to be flexible. Flexibility is very important, has been even more important over the last couple of years, but to be very flexible and empathetic. That has a lot to do with who we are as a school community, and a lot of independent schools want you to be able to be empathetic to the different types of folks in your community. And lastly, just to be positive, right? They want people who we bring a positive sense of who they are and what they do to the community. That's really important. There's an expression that says we teach who we are. And in some jobs, you really have to separate who you are from the core of your work. Not with teaching, and not in independent schools. It is an extension of who you are, being a teacher at independent schools. Successful candidates are also those who are in best position to teach those 21st century skills that are so talked about, creativity and character, lots of character education, real world problem solving, communication, collaboration. We collaborate a lot with each other as adults, but we're teaching our students to do it as well. To give a global perspective, a digital and quantitative literacy, adaptability, initiative, risk-taking, all these important things. And to wrap that all up in integrity and be able to make ethical decisions is really important for an adult to be able to pass on to their students. Researcher Carol Dweck highlights the importance of being flexible and having a growth mindset. And no doubt, over the past 2 years, we've certainly need to show this. And it's really so much of what we teach our kids, that we are constantly learners, we're lifelong learners, and that's what's really important. Many independent schools will seek career changers. I was a career changer. I started off in lots of things, but most recently, before I got into education, I was in publishing and did some editing in that realm. But they come to independent schools and find their place there. You most likely find it in the upper and middle school positions, but also specials and lower school like art and science. We have, working artists in our science program, and folks who have been scientists by trade teaching science, which is great. With that, it's really important to have a strong knowledge of your subject matter and practical expertise, right? Which can be a true gift for students when they see how this plays out beyond kind of theory, but really into practice. Being passionate about the change, really wanting to be in education, I think is important. And Bob talked about that experience with working with kids, whether it's tutoring or coaching or being a troop leader, just knowing how to be around students and how to navigate, especially the youngest ones, which could be a little tricky for folks who are career changers, going from an all adult environment to one that has children. And lastly, graduate degree in education or a specific area is helpful, but you don't have to have a degree in that specific subject. And that's not someone trying to sneak in, right? That's just really about ways to get your foot in the door. Being a career changer is one way, but another good way is through substitute teaching or coaching. Bob talked a little bit about the kind of coaches we have, but right now schools really have a need for substitutes. And a majority of our coaches at Leach are external hires. So coming into the school, being a substitute teacher, they get to know you, you get to know the community. And you get to decide if that's kind of the place that you want to be, and you can kind of make your mark, either being a day-to-day substitute, or in a lot of cases, people have started this idea of long-term subs. So if it's taking over for someone on maternity leave or someone who's on a different type of leave, just being a part of the community helps if you really want to end up being a long-term member of that community.
Yeah, that's really the long-term really a great one, because then you get to see the school up close and they get to see you as well. So what does the application process look like typically in an independent school? So you will find a job posted somewhere, and we'll talk about where that somewhere might be. And you will send your resume and cover letter in. Kiki will talk more about that, and or fill out an application. Some schools have employment applications, some don't. And then an administrator will go through them and then reach out to you via email to see if you want to do a phone or a Zoom or a Skype interview, possibly in person if you're local. I know that schools try to, for equity reasons, have consistent interview processes from beginning to end. I know we do really focus on that. Then after the school narrows down from a number of initial interviews, there's the day-long school visit, which consists of different interviews with different constituents, sometimes students too, which is great when people come in and get to meet with students. Also teaching a sample lesson, and then often a writing sample. So much of what you do as an educator is communicating verbally and in writing, whether it's emails to parents or older kids, comments, or report cards, or newsletters and things like that. So the writing piece is key. And then once the school has really decided on a candidate, then references are checked and backgrounds are checked and transcripts and things like that.
So Bob mentioned the cover letter, and so we thought we'd give you a few tips on that. First and foremost, submit a cover letter. That's really important. And it's also just as important to customize that cover letter to each school. Refer to their mission, what you like about them from what you saw online or what you've heard, their reputation. This makes a really strong initial impression. Don't say things like, I'm interested in working in your school district. That's not the language of independent schools, if that's where you want to go. Or I'm interested in working for your company / school / organization. It doesn't show that you know the school that you're applying to. Share what why you're interested in working at that particular school. This goes back to the knowledge, you having the knowledge of what that school is about and what that school has to offer. Also be sure to include all relative work, personal, kid experience. We talked about that. Schools are continuing to looking for coaches. We look for coaches every season, so not just every year. So they're looking for club leaders and things like that. So any relative work experience you have, summer camps, like they said, Boys and Girls Club, nothing that should be left off as far as your relevant work experience. The other thing is edit edit and then edit again. You know, don't make any mistakes in that cover letter. Always maintain a professional tone, and by all means keep it to one page. I think, you know, you just want to introduce yourself in your cover letter. So that's really important when you're crafting a cover letter in your resume. Include like work and teaching experience, include all relevant professional development that you've done. Schools want to know what you're interested in and what you're passionate about, and that you are a lifelong learner, that you will and want to continue to learn and do better and be better. And I will say right now, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a strong focus for schools. They're looking for folks who have that professional development and are willing to do more of that. So that's critical and important if you have that background, to include that in your resume. Also include any presentations or awards or articles or publications that you may be attributed to you in the work you've done. That's really important. And something that's often missed is relevant coursework. So if it's not obvious from your major what you want to do at the school, so if it's something like sociology or American studies, which most schools don't have that as a discipline, list your psychology classes that you took alongside of that. A lot of schools do have psychology, especially in the upper school. Or if it's American studies, list out your history courses that you took surrounding that coursework. That will be important in letting the school know what you are interested in and what you are capable of doing for their school.
I had mentioned the school visit, and I'm not going to read through all of these. You can take a look at them, but I just want to highlight a couple of them. So in terms of asking thoughtful questions, come prepared with questions. So look at their website, look at any materials that they've shared with you, check out their Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, so that you're really well versed in who they are as a school and what they stand for and what their focus is, so that you can ask relevant, pertinent questions about that. Ask questions about their mission, ask questions about their community. Kiki mentioned this a couple times. Ask about opportunities for growth and support for new teachers. Do not ask about logistics, or if you do, not a lot. So if you come in, which happens sometimes, asking about like, what time does school start? What time does school end? What's the first day of school? What's the last day of school? How long are the vacations? Do the teachers get the same amount of time as the students for vacations? If you are asking all of those questions, then we in independent schools would be concerned that that might take priority over the other things. So save those for later in the process. And then create an engaging lesson. And the lesson should show that you put a lot of time in it and a lot of effort, that you know your subject matter, but also, so we're watching for subject matter knowledge, which is just a little snapshot. Also, I should say, we understand that it is artificial, that you are much better with your students than with some other students. And like everyone knows that in the room. The kids know it, you know it, the administration knows it. So we don't expect things to go perfectly. And at the same time, in addition to showing your mastery of the subject matter, the rapport that you show with students is really, really important. And so make sure your tone is positive, never be sarcastic. Also, just a couple tips that help is to call the students by name. So even if the school, some schools will already have the students have like name tags or something like that, but if not, you might want to ask, but you can bring in name tags, have the students put name tags on, bring in big index cards and have them fold them like a tent card and put their name across, so that you can mention students by name and refer back to them. And that's a way of quickly developing rapport and connection with the students. And then follow up with a note or an email. And I will tell you, Kiki and I will say that if you get, Kiki's always really good about this when I do things in her office, like when you get a handwritten note from someone these days, it's so rare that it really truly stands out. And I just wanted to quickly say something that to follow up on something Kiki said earlier. If we have this, we use this online platform to review resumes and things. So if I get 100 resumes for a position, let's say, and I'm looking through, the cover letter is the thing that is going to distinguish it. It's really hard because if it's just the resume, you don't really get as much of a sense of who the person is. And then you sometimes get a feeling that someone's just blasting resumes out to like 100 different schools without really thinking about, whether it's the right community for them or whether they're right for that community. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
So important. So important.
And now we're getting to the meat of the not that what we've done so far is fluff, but I think that this is the part that is really concrete that Kiki's going to start to share with you.
Yeah. It's about finding a job, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
find a job on all this. So, when we think about finding a job nationally, first and foremost, now is a great time to start looking for independent school positions. While some school districts and public schools and charter schools don't know what their needs are until the summer, private schools often give their contracts out right about now is hiring season for them. And they're due soon. Ours are actually due Friday. So this is the time to go looking for the places that are listing their jobs. So most independent schools belong to the National Association of Independent Schools, as do we, and they list their jobs on their career site. So there's a career site section of their website that you can go to, and you can look by state or by type of school. It's really a great place to go look and see what's available there, and that's national. We're also
just a reminder, if I see, sorry to interrupt, Kiki, but you do not need to be Googling these places right now, because we will send like literally this slide and the other slides with links to all these places so that you make sure that you get to the right place. Yeah.
Right, because there's a lot of acronyms out there, but the National Association of Independent Schools is great because, like I said, you can filter on so many different things. There's also local and regional school organizations. For example, we belong to the Virginia Association of Independent Schools and the Association of Independent Schools of Greater Washington. That's kind of the Metro DC area schools, and their websites also have job listings. So those are great places to start. We also find candidates through placement agency like the ones listed here. There's typically a small or no fee for the teachers who are looking for jobs. The schools actually pay a fee once they hire a person to the agency. So it's generally a very low cost for you to be a part of that. And the agency will do a lot of the work for you. They'll pull the information together, your transcript, references, your teaching philosophy, your resume, and they'll send that all together to schools, and they advocate on behalf of their candidates. So these are really good opportunities. And we're going to highlight a couple here that you'll see highlighted in yellow. These agencies are geared toward faculty of color. So they're focused on diverse hiring pools. And so if you identify in such a way, these are great agencies to reach out to.
If you dream of visiting the Eiffel Tower on a regular basis or being adventurous and walking on the Great Wall of China, know that there are international schools out there. So there might be some folks on this who are not in the continental US, but I think most are. And I know you probably did not join this webinar to think about international schools, but we have many colleagues who have taught internationally, and generally you'll stay, in a school for 2 years or 3 years and then move on. And there's a whole community out there of people who go from school to school, from country to country. They have incredible life-changing experiences for them and for their families. And when you ask them about, like we take great field trips to the Smithsonian Museum and the Capitol and the Washington Monument, because it's like, not too far away. But then like these schools, it's like, oh, we took kids trekking in Nepal, or we, were, hiking in wherever, and the Loire Valley. And it's just, it's really incredible. So these are agencies, organizations like the other ones, national. These are international. And so the way they often work is that they have job fairs in the US. So I think there's a big one in Boston, maybe LA, there might be a couple others. And they have these job fairs a couple times a year. and you can be hired on the spot, which is just wild to think. Like, I'm in, Boston one day, and then, I'll be in, in China in a few months. And so it's really an incredible opportunity for those who are adventurous and inclined to explore other cultures and countries and people. That is it for our formal. Here, I'll stop sharing. For our formal presentation,